Yes, I'm a prince, one of the few princes in Italy. It's not easy to be a prince. You need to be really different. So I had to spend all my life trying to escape this fate. Instead, I started making the most difficult job I could ever make, which was printing machines. This was the only way to discover if I could do things in a most improbable environment for my education and for my personal skills. If you're making systemic innovation, you always look for a different step, a different objective. The initial purpose was to make that ethical behaviors become the engine of the business worldwide. Blockchain, what is it? It's just a huge, enormous database where you're just substituting the existing operating system of business with a new operating system where everything is traceable, measurable, and usable the way you want. And this is going to liberate a lot in the commerce.
Okay, so Federico, thank you very much for coming on our podcast. Could you please explain a little bit about your background? As I understand, you are a prince. Can you tell us a little bit about your family background?
You play it light. Thank you, David, for letting me in. Yes, I'm a prince, one of the few princes in Italy, because it's not easy to be a prince. You need to be really different to be a prince, because in Italy there are many counts, barons, some dukes, not so many. But yeah, I have this thing that if you write my name on the internet, my grandfather was a very famous poet, and so I had to spend all my life trying to escape this fate. Because, of course, wherever I went, everybody was asking me, what are you going to write? Are you a poet? Are you a writer? So I had to escape this sort of big name. And I spent all my life outside Italy. So everybody could use my skills and not my legacy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think of the movie Roman Holiday. Have you seen that with
Yeah, Vacanze Romane, yes.
yeah, Audrey Hepburn? So yeah, the pressures of the grass is always greener. Like many of us dream of being a prince, but when you're there, there's different unique challenges.
Yeah, try to imagine your name is Shakespeare, no? And everybody
Hmm.
goes, "Hello, how Federico Shakespeare? How are you? Are you grand? Yes, yes. And how is it?" And instead, I started making the most difficult job I could ever make, which was printing machines, because my education was art and philosophy and law. So I studied these three things, and then I decided I will start with the most difficult task, which is industrial machines, where I had no experience at all. And this was the only way to discover if I could do things in a most improbable environment for my education and for my personal skills. So I started very young on that, and then I spent in that industry around 30 years working hard to make machines and invent new things for the industry.
That's really interesting how there are different motivators. So sometimes things that are unpleasant, you might otherwise elect not to have, wind up taking you to a new place that you might not have been otherwise. So that's a really interesting journey, though. The prince who went into engineering or making machines.
Yeah. In fact, also my grandfather, who was the son of Gabriele D'Annunzio, who was the third son of him, decided to have a total different way. And also, he was the only one who became an engineer in aeroplanes. And I didn't tell you last time, he was the importer of Bugatti, no, Isotta Fraschini in New York. So he became the importer of this super luxury car in New York, and he became an entrepreneur. And nobody knew anything about D'Annunzio or my name. So he has just followed the same path. He made one patent I have discovered at that time. I have more than 20, and we have followed more or less the same path. So it's not uncommon that you try to escape a heavy name.
Right. Where's your hometown?
Florence.
So you're from Florence, native born, and you studied at university in
No,
Milan.
I was born in worst. Worse, I was born in Rome.
Okay. So
So my legacy in history is huge.
Sure. Yeah, Rome is an amazing city. Do you visit Rome often?
Florence and Rome all the time because they are just an hour and a half by train.
Right. Yeah, and very different. It's almost like visiting different countries, the two
Yeah,
cities.
you're totally right. In Florence, you have harmony. In Rome, you have empire. In empire, you're just a passenger. I mean, when you are in Rome, you feel that you are just a small part of the history. If you're in Florence, you're part of the human being. It's a different story. Your eyes, when you are in Florence, are the eyes of those who have thought that the human being is at the center. Instead, and this is Renaissance, humanesimo, and fundamental change that happened after the Middle Age. And this happened in Florence. When you go to Rome, you understand that there are so many different layers that you're just part of the history, but you will never be protagonist. While in Florence, you can be protagonist. Your eyes are protagonist.
Yeah. Florence is like standing on top of a mountain. Rome is like being in outer space.
Sì,
And
esatto.
so you moved, you had the pressure of being a poet, having like fate placed upon you, and you sought your own path. But you've done that multiple times. And like you said, you have a number of patents, some 2 dozen patents. Um, and from making machines, you've now gone into something that some people at least might find surprising. Could you talk about your current venture?
Yeah, the path was very simple. Not simple, simple for someone who makes innovation. If you're making systemic innovation, you always look for a different step, a different objective. So I was in the packaging industry and I was making printing machines for the packaging industry. And as you may well imagine, when you are in the packaging industry, in fact, you are touching all the industries. You have the food industry, the chemical industry, most of the industries are there. So I could have a 360 degrees vision on all the needs of all the industries because they were customers or direct customers or indirect customers. But in any case, the machines that I was producing at that time, which were quite long machines, between 10 and 50 yards, so big machines. So, and very complex machines with a lot of accessories and configurations. Then when the biggest company in the world decided to buy my company, I made a step up and I started to design new things for the biggest company in the world, again, as an innovation guy. And then when I started to discuss with them digital transformation, we went together to San Francisco and we had I don't know if I can make the name McKinsey. I can. Well, it's okay. McKinsey organized a good trip for us, and the guys at McKinsey said, Federico, you have too many different ideas, and nobody will be ever making them. They are too big and too impactful. So it's better that you make your company on your own, and we know that you can do it because of your past. The McKinsey guys were referring to the fact that I had already received a lifetime achievement for innovation from my former industry. So I had all the numbers to create something completely new. So the fact was that I had no experience at all in software, zero. But it was the same as starting again in the mechanical industry. I had no experience at all in the mechanical industry. So the path was the same. And if you study in depth the philosophy of a mechanical machine versus a software program and algorithm, the object is more or less the same. You enter with something which is raw. You have a machine in between, and you add value. You add components which add further value, and then at the end you have another value which is coming out, which might be a total different product. So you come with paper, and then you get at the end a label. You come with data, and you come out maybe with a digital product passport. And so at the end, you have the same path. You have designers, you have the idea at the beginning, because you have to have an idea at the beginning what you want to achieve difference, because you have competition and you want to achieve something which is greater than the machine itself. In general, even in when you make a machine, you think, how can I contribute to the whole industry? How can I involve all the industry to work together to make a better environment, to make better efficiency, to contribute for social or ethical or economic improvements. And this is the same I'm doing after the experience of the packaging industry, where I gave whatever I could. And now I started this new business, which is just putting inside the business world, the entrepreneur's world, all the experience I had in manufacturing, in industrial, and in general in all the path, in all the workflow for traditional businesses. So, what was the purpose? The initial purpose was to make that ethics and ethical behaviors become the engine of the business worldwide. So what that was the driver. But we are not talking about religious or transcendent ethics. It's very simple ethics of respecting the world, being awarded for your good behaviors, having the virtuous companies being upfront and being recognized, and having data being considered valuable, ready, and also having objects having their entire value put onto the market, and not only their physical value. So they were very simple objectives, which refer also, I don't know if I'm talking too long, but refer to the fact that I am a natural boomer. I don't know if there are in our audience many boomers, but when I was entering the market as a boomer, uh, I was selling machines, and machines were expensive. But when I was selling machines, I was using the hand. I was giving the hand. A handshake was irrevocable, was forever. And so, in fact, what I'm looking for since the beginning of my activities is to go back to that time. So, what I am trying to do with all the people who are now working with us, they all share this, to give a system, a systematic instrument which allows the people to trust each other, to trust the world, to behave in a correct way. That's the main purpose. But to do that is not simple. It was not simple at all.
Thank you for that background. That doesn't sound simple. It does sound fascinating, though. And the Global Achievement Award that you mentioned is the Stanton Avery Global Achievement Award, and you won that in 2020 for the digitization of the conventional label printing process. Could you talk a little bit about the significance of what you did so that the audience can understand why you won this award?
That was a big path. It doesn't take 1 year, it takes years to make this happen. Because at the beginning, the ink, when you put ink on a surface, imagine that you have to make a Coca-Cola red. Coca-Cola red is Coca-Cola red, okay? Then you have to go to Pepsi blue, okay? So normally what you would have done in the past, you would have taken the ink away from a printing unit, so you had to clean the printing unit, take it away, put the blue in, and start to try to see if it prints the blue that it should be. So if it is a little bit lighter or darker, or you put some ink, and then you have waste and waste and waste and waste, and a lot of time. But this was everything based on the hands of the operator, and on the eye of the operator, and on the machine mechanics. So the purpose was to digitize the whole thing. And how could you digitize? First of all, automation into the machine. Instead of having the eyes of the operator, we put cameras which were looking at the printing and automatically adjusting the printing. So you didn't touch the machine anymore. This was a big, already something which made a big change. But most important was that instead of having the color made by the ink, you had the color made by 7 colors on top of each other, like you are doing in the digital printing. You know that when you are printing with digital printing, you are having colors which are simulating the right color. At that time, it was not like that. It was that every time you made a special color, you needed to stop the machine, take away the ink, try to match the ink, and it was something like 10,000 yards of square yards of waste, and about 2 to 4 hours change in terms of time. And instead, at the end, this ended up now in maybe 10 meters, 10 yards of waste, 20 or 1 minute in change. Because you don't need, you just put the cylinders in and then you go. Because automatically, and this had to involve all the players. It was those who were making the plates, because they were still the same thing. We didn't change to digital. I mean, now it's digital, it's easier, but at that time it was not that. It was still analog machine with print cylinder, with ink, with everything. We didn't change the base, but we only changed the environment around. So it was a systemic change. So the software guys had to define what was on top of each other, creating that particular color on the different substrates, because you have to print on paper, on aluminum, on carton, on plastic, on many different substances. So you needed to have a the whole ink industry had to adapt to this change. The, the plate cylinders and the plates had to adapt. And the press manufacturers, all my competitors, had to adapt. So we all had to follow this. And then at the end, you get the award for innovation, because at the end, the whole business is much more also consistent and repeatable because it has been digitized.
Yeah, it sounds like an order of magnitude improvement. And you helped with waste, you helped with efficiency, and you helped with profits. And you probably helped the employees as well.
And it was not, sorry, it was not only of course, you are improved, we help with the profits, but in fact, we opened a completely new market for the label industry, because the label industry was a small market, no? But then, because you have all these advantages and you try to put it into the flexible packaging or the cardboard industry, all of a sudden, all these players were able to enter much bigger markets because they were much faster, much more less expensive, much more flexible in the market. So in fact, we were increasing the cake. That the effort that I tried to convince everybody to make was not only for improving for the sake of improving, but also to go to other markets and become more efficient versus other competitors and in other totally new markets that they couldn't attack before.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's actually, I think, one of the rebuttals to AI basically replacing people's jobs is that it may lead to other jobs. So with change is opportunity.
Yeah, but you will see, we didn't discuss before, but you will see other changes in the future. If you want to deep dive on AI, there will be big changes. The biggest change will be that you will see the birth of AI personas, juridic personas. Because what is going to happen, there are three elements which have to be considered. The first is that you have the power of computing power of this AI, which is increased, and you will have quantum computers together working together. And then there is communication. I mean, you will have a much faster communication between the device and the central brain. So you will have a relocated and remote driven brains, which will be extremely powerful. So, and you will have also a juridic and legislation which will start to give more empowerment to the AI. But how can you do that? You will only be able to do that if AI will be able to be traceable, trustworthy, and explainable. And this is another step that we cover with our technologies. This is going to be the future, because in the future you will see more and more machines, things which will think, and they will be without a body. Then there is another set of world, which is human beings, which will use things with the same brains, but with a human body. That is going to be a very distinctive difference. And this will probably create two sets of rights. One, the sets of rights for the things, and one, the set of rights for the things which have a body, and then with the body, the soul, the conscience, etc., etc. So we will need to create these famous gates and fences around the human being, but the human being is going to be a different thing. It's not going to be only its physical thing, it's going to be all its physical interactions together. And because of blockchain, the physical interactions will become physical. Sorry, the digital interactions will become, in a way, physical because they are carved in stone. So every single human person will consider, if you take away some data from myself, you are just cutting a finger out of me. And this is something that will happen very soon because accountability of AI is creating all these ethical problems, which can only be solved if you first protect the interest of the human being and if you first identify the rights of the human being.
Before we transition fully into blockchain and your current venture, I want to talk about one thing that you mentioned about your working with those machines and improving them in such a drastic way. You mentioned using cameras to basically replace and improve upon the human component there. It sounded to me like an early version of machine learning, basically maybe starting to use AI to improve this process. Did that lead to where you are now with
Yeah.
blockchain and artificial intelligence?
Yes, yes, absolutely. In fact, what with the blockchain you are trying to do with the blockchain, the smart contracts, the discipline in processes is to make the human being concentrate on other tasks which are more important. That's what we do.
Yeah, free up the human to be human.
Yeah, exactly. We take advantage of the humanity and its abilities, which are never. Remember that the human brain is consuming 20 watts for everything that he's doing, and most of the things the AI cannot do it at the moment. And in any case, to be able to do it, it will need enormous power. And in any case, they have the AI is probabilistic, is not deterministic. So it's a total different. The interesting thing will be to discuss in the future uh, what is going to be the pleasure for AI, what is going to be the teleology of AI, what is the final aim of AI. I mean, those systems will start to have a self-recognition. They will recognize themselves. So what is going to be their play game? We don't know. We will never know. We will not know until now, because already now my guys are telling me that the results of the AI are totally unpredictable for them. Now, I mean, you are in the transformers. Everything is working there in the transformers, and they don't know what is going to happen, even if they try to understand what is happening in between. But my people tell me, no, it's impossible for us. You just have to rely on the output, and then from there on elaborate and put some other, let's say, simple tools of using the elaborated stuff to be useful for the human being or for the purpose. But in the between, we don't know. And it's fascinating in a way. But I would like to see in the future how they will have fun, how AI driven things will have fun, how what will make pleasure for them. We have aesthetics, we have beauty, we have other things which make us alive. What about that part, which in fact is something that doesn't stop? I mean, the growth of AI is unstoppable. Is they are trying to cover the whole space, to fill the whole space. That's the purpose of a probabilistic environment, to cover it all. But it doesn't have to focus on something. We have the pleasure that when I received the award for innovation, that was the purpose of my life. But AI doesn't really care about that.
Well, it can exceed our abilities in many respects and will likely continue to. When you mentioned that you took 10,000 square yards of waste and brought that down to 10 square yards of waste, that kind of drastic improvement, I think, is probably what we'll see. We'll see it, like, for example, we can only see a certain amount of the universe ourselves. We don't know what else is out there. We don't know so much. and perhaps for AI, it could even very quickly far surpass those boundaries. And like you mentioned, there's like a digital passport, or almost this gate rather, where there's the organic and the digital worlds, if you will. It may very well leave us entirely, just like children moving out of the house, and it might, hopefully we can get some knowledge from it. But yeah, there's no telling whether or not it'll remain attached to us or become something else entirely, or even like superposition, like quantum superposition, where it can be both places at once.
We will take advantage, but for sure, this is the human being. So we will take advantage. We will probably be driven by and drive AI. So it's going to be very interesting. It's just another form of is expanded intelligence. So at the moment is artificial, but in the future is going to be just expanded intelligence. We will be connected. We are in a way with the mobile connected to other forms of brain. No, we are already. And the difference will be that it will be directly in the brain.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. I'd like to talk a little bit now about your current venture. The name, could you explain the name to us? I'm not familiar with that.
Trient, it's transparent enterprise. And
Okay, and
yeah.
this brings blockchain to any industry in an intuitive way. Could you
Mm.
explain how blockchain can improve an industry? You mentioned a little bit, but just in your words, when you're meeting people, what do you tell them?
Yeah, first of all, when I opened the box of blockchain in 2020, when I had this idea of having everything on blockchain, I discovered that it was impossible to use it for enterprise. So we had to redesign it completely. So we spent 4 years of dozens of developers and patents, and we had to change completely the blockchain. So what you have heard about blockchain in terms of wish lists, now it's entirely possible. But to reach it, you need to make really a systemic change. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do it. First of all, blockchain by definition is expensive. Everybody knows that you have thousands of computers who are working together, and they are rewarded somehow to put the data in. And this has an expense. I don't want to tell you how we do it, but now blockchain can be at the same cost as cloud. So you can put as many data as you want on blockchain. So why not putting everything on blockchain? In fact, blockchain, what is it at the end, is a very secured, immutable database, enormous database, nothing more. It's just a huge, enormous database where you're just substituting the existing operating system of business with a new operating system where everything is traceable, measurable, validated, and usable the way you want. So it's just, first of all, it is a operating system with changes in the business. So blockchain is a big database using the same rules, using the same options that you have in a database, but in a secure, traceable way and not changeable. Changeable, but in a way that you can trace the change. So you're not able to fake it or to make malicious operations on the data. That's the first thing. That's the basement. We call it the blockchain lake. Have this big lake of data. This is a data which are totally encrypted. That's the second level. Second level is okay. Now we put all the data there. They cannot be changed. They are only one direction. Second level is that nobody can see them. The main point is that they are totally encrypted. They are encrypted, they are natively encrypted. When they go to the blockchain, they are encrypted. So only the owner of the data or the producer of the data can use them. So the famous Web3 is based on that. So the fact that data is a value and it can be used and shared and taken advantage of only by those who are producing the data. Does it sound okay?
It sounds like a safety deposit box in a bank.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it comes from the bank system. It was a trusted distributed bank. In fact, the idea of the coins at the beginning. So now we are putting that just in the business is a trusted database for everybody. So that's the first, and it has to be with the same cost as what you are used to. Otherwise, people wouldn't choose that. Okay. Second, okay, now we have this first level. The second level was that to put data on the blockchain, you needed Solidity developers, special developers. It was complicated. Now, what we have designed is just a very simple Web2 interface or series of interfaces, adaptable interfaces to each industry, where you just put the data in, like if you put it on your website or on your Office suite or Google or whatever, or the Web2 interface that you're used to, but under you have your underlying operating system on Web3. Okay. So second layer is, okay, now we put the data in a simple way in. Okay. And this, good. But now, how can we make that we use all this data in a profitable way? The third level is, okay, now I can segregate data in billions or trillions of blockchains. So you can have a specific blockchain per supplier, per friend, per customer, per machine, per product, per whatever you want. So you can create a subset of data which is entirely encrypted and segregated and secret and confidential. So you own all this data, but they are coming from different suppliers and different people who don't see the other data. So we have jumped in one leap all the problems of confidentiality of blockchain, because in the past everybody was complaining about blockchain because the blockchain by definition was sharing all the data through all the nodes, so everybody could see the data. So everybody was sharing the minimum content. Here, we have billions of blockchains, and everybody can share whatever he wants. It is encrypted, secure, and it is reliable for everybody. So you start to have also the confidentiality problem, which is typical of business, solved. Should I continue? Is it okay?
Well, I mean, there's so many questions I have. If you're at a natural pause, I might ask, like, what led to you, well, like, what led to this pain point in your experience? I see um, on your website, you mentioned that there is a European Commission report that mentions scalability, performance, interoperability, high energy consumption, confidentiality, and the protection of personal data being the main challenges preventing the adoption of blockchain technology, which you just mentioned. And you fixed it all. So, true to your background as an innovator, could you talk to us a little bit about what led to that discovery on your part? Like, what made you think this is important and this is something I can solve?
Because just experience in the industry. When imagine I ask you, when you buy a product, do you buy it for its own data, or for, yeah, you're absolutely sure of the product, or you're buying it for the marketing that you made on the product? I mean, you have a lot of expenses made on the added on the product of marketing, convincing, and sales organization, and to convince you to buy that specific product. What if this product can speak himself? He can tell you everything about himself, and you can rely, and you can measure, and you can benchmark, and you can do. It's a total new world. Since the first industrial revolution, the world has gone through silos. You have companies who are silos. Try to think what happens in the communication between companies. You are emailing. You have a very confused and unpredictable way of communicating information. And they are stored each on his own silos. But there is not a common procedure. There is not a disciplined procedure and process of conveying the information in an organized way, which is super efficient all the time. So there is a huge dispersion of information. So from a silos world, you enter a connected world, a truly connected. The connection worked fine in the private business. In the enterprise business, this connectivity didn't work out with good products. So the first thing was, okay, we have this digital revolution, which is changing the custom world, and it's not doing anything in the. You have tons of data, of digital transformation which have no value. They are not stored in the right position. They are not packaged in good things like a digital product passport, and they do not create value. So that was something which was a waste. On my side, it was the same waste of the 10,000 square meters. So it was just that it is waste. And then imagine that you are a big company. And let's make an opposite sample example. You are a big company. You are a super big corporate, but you have organized your company to make very 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 short runs, very short packages of deliveries. But nobody believes you because they think it's a big company. I can only dig orders with them. No, if I have blockchain and I can prove that my production is making this in 2 days, 3 days, and I have 80% or 90% of deliveries on time, 95% deliveries on time of that particular object, of that particular run, then you don't see anymore the legacy of the company, but you see truthfully which is going to be that company, the company that you're dealing with. And this is going to liberate a lot in the commerce. Because if you want to have a supplier, you will not anymore need to know much about the person, but you will know much about the performance. And the performance is validated by third parties. It's not you yourself who are saying something. It's the third parties who are saying that you are doing that. So this makes the whole business, of course, scam will be always there. There will be always taking advantage, but it will be much more difficult because you will have to involve many players to lie, many players to be in the system at the same time be easily detected in their lying process.
You drastically increase the price of deception, so you disincentivize it. What you mentioned about having that data on the products and everything that goes out there, it reminds me of putting the cameras in the machine that you did previously, where all of a sudden you have insight real time to the performance of your products. And that can help both the company and the client or customer um, innovate faster.
Yeah, I didn't think about the analogy within the cameras that I put in the machines and in fact, that's true because now that I think about, for instance, you make a digital product passport of a house, of a building, okay? In fact, you make it's very interesting because you put everything inside. I mean, you put the BIM is the digital twin of the house. Then you put all the relations with the public administration, all the compliances, all the permissions, etc. Whatever you need. The bank, all the relations with your maintenance, everything. It becomes a sort of big digital assistant for the house, which stays there for all the time. But the nice thing is that because of the fact that we can select some of this information and give them to third parties also in a very selective way, in a very granular way, imagine that you are giving to the third party, which can be an investor or can be a customer or can be someone who, an auditor, a sort of camera, live camera to see what is inside. Exactly what, as you said. In fact, you are giving to everybody the camera to look into the side and decide what to do. So you're giving extreme value because imagine that you have one of the big funds in US who have 100 billions invested in houses in real estate, and they want to liberate to free only maybe 1 billion out of 100, and it's very difficult to put on the market 1 billion. So they can make a fund, they can create a fund, a financial product, and everybody with his own camera can see everything in that particular fund in real time with no due diligence, because the due diligence is already natural, coming from the data, coming also from the different houses. And in the real estate is a particularly interesting business because there is a lot of data coming out. The data from utilities, the data from the digital twin, the data from the maintenance, the data from the bank, the data. There are many data that you want to know. I mean, if you're investing in a set of buildings, you want to know how much money, the revenues are coming from. So you want to check the contracts. You want to check if the guys are inside or not inside. So you can have a lot of IoT, which is writing data directly without having human beings controlling and reconciliating the data. And you put all the data on the blockchain directly. So the investor who has the camera can see with the camera everything which is happening.
So this could revolutionize the real estate industry and real estate investment trusts and uh, other industries as well. On your website, you mentioned this can touch every industry. I've heard in the pandemic when we had our supply chains disrupted, people had mentioned that blockchain could be an improvement there. Uh, is that another industry that you're targeting, like shipping and transportation?
I mean, the typical industries are for the beginning, just for the beginning, are the industries where you have a product with a higher value, a physical product with a higher value. A house is the biggest value. Okay, a car is another value. Ship is another big value. A plane is a big value. So, and the plane has a lot of sub values, all the spare parts. So you can have there, but you can also have in the containers industry, in the logistics. You have a container which goes from hand to hand in many different, and you need to be sure that all these data are the same. They have no, you're not putting the hands in the data. You're not changing anything. So this is just in transportation, in logistics. Then you can have it in oil and gas. Oil and gas, you have many data coming, exchanged, coming from the machines, coming uh, from the compressors, coming from turbines, coming from many different places. And all this data need to have, or to be sure, to be sold, to be paid, and to be the base of the maintenance. And everything can be on the blockchain. It can be with a digital product passport of if every single thing which comes out of the industry or even of financial products is under blockchain, there is a lot of automation and there is much less risk of errors, much less risk of reconciliation of data which is not going in the proper way, or some data which are, so in fact it can go to every industry, but at the beginning as a company we prefer to follow the typical low hanging fruits. So uh, real estate, art, where you have a value, and most of the people are afraid that a piece of art is not true or not original, authentic, etc. You have means, and we have also developed some new things also in the art business to make it completely new. Oil and gas, uh, mines also. You know that in the mines there is a big problem of authenticity and transport of the mines. Earth, and then there is ESG. ESG is a byproduct because if you have a digital product passport, you're putting all data which are coming from below. But now imagine that your all data are coming from a supply chain which is under control. So you have a supply chain which is super efficient. And all the data of ESG, you don't need anymore to have a due diligence because you just have, okay, which data do you want? You are Deloitte? You want this data? Okay, ta, 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 and I send you a blockchain. Or you are KPMG, you want another set, or you want to make your carbon footprint. Okay, and I make it following the carbon footprint rules. Or you want to make carbon credits because it's another big market which is going uh, to take advantage of this because everything is much more transparent. So you verifiable and on time. That's another. It's there are two things. One is it true and verifiable and reliable, but also it's instantly. You can check it instantly in real time. So that's a big difference because then makes all the jobs for everybody much easier. And then you can evaluate. Imagine that you are looking for someone who making hats in general because you want to enter the hat and you want to make hats for your company. And you have one who is making hats at the 20% more and the other one is at 20% less, but then you discover that this one is ESG compliant and is not using babies, etc, etc. This is a little bit gray and you don't know what is happening. So you can decide, you can still buy here, but you can also buy here, because every time you have transparency probably it costs a little bit more because you are paying more. But this also is coming to the reason why I wanted to make this is because my company was a 50 million company, well, not a big company making machines. And I fighted with companies which were 400 million, 500 million companies, okay, in turnover. I had to struggle to convince the big corporates to buy from us because they all knew that our technology was by far better. But they said, okay, I don't know. I don't know if I can rely, I can trust this company. So the lift, the social lift or the entrepreneur lift for the companies is in a way having some rust, which is the legacy. So instead of having ambassadors, you have to put everything on data, and then you can be true. And then finally, if you are good, you are rewarded for that.
You mentioned that this gives access or insight to any business or really anyone who needs access to that. But I think the obvious question these days is we might not need a human at all. Like you could just have AI on top of it with certain parameters instantly, making decisions and optimizing your processes. Could you talk about the integration of AI with blockchain?
Yeah, uh, is what I was anticipating before. You cannot consider in the future AI as a external player. It will be in every single process. So, because my job always has been to be forefront and future proof, we can put AI directly on the blockchain. AI, including also the data set which has formed the let's call it decision of the AI, because one of the main contributors of business in the future, and especially what is going to change dramatically the financial balances in the business is going to be AI. I mean, companies who are invested in AI, and these companies are going to create a sort of leadership worldwide. Now you have to put AI inside the business and as part of the business. And for me, the business is blockchain. So we can run AI inside the blockchain, including the data set. What is the advantage? First of all, is compliance. You know that in Europe, we are quite ball breakers about compliance. We have GDPR, we have the AI Act, we have the digital product passport, which is going to become mandatory for all the companies who are going to sell in Europe. So all these three things have to be disciplined in a way. So this is why we have put everything on the blockchain, also the AI, because if you want to be compliant with AI Act, you need to make all the AI Act decisions and the process explainable. It's a technical term. You need, in fact, it's just like traceable. You need to which version of the AI I'm using, or did I use for that particular inference, that particular decision? Which was the data set that I used? I have to be able to prove it, that I didn't mess up with the data, that I didn't play with the data. So I have version A, version B, version 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, etc. So you can put everything in a way that you are protecting and the user and the producer of AI. This is just mechanics. You are putting everything on the safe side, on the robust side. So AI is not going to be anymore a danger because it's controllable, it's explainable, and it will be able to have as I said, a sort of legal accountability to a certain extent. And as you said, the human being will have to do something completely different, which AI cannot do. Otherwise, will be totally substituted. It's you remember Ned Ludd?
Yeah,
Ned Ludd, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, the people who are complaining about AI are just not considering the returning wheel of history. Now we are
right.
in the phase of Steam. We have Steam, which is now taking away the jobs of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Same, absolutely the same. But then the human being also, it will be probably a pleasure in the future to work less and to
Well,
take advantage of itself, because we human beings, if you look at historically how many days we have been working, it was 7 days, then it started to be 6 days, or it's 5 days, and now the afternoon of Friday is week, let's say. And then you will see that the world will adapt to a new reality where you can work less if you want, but you can work much better. How much of your time is really, really effective.
Yeah.
I, I ask you, how much of your time is really effective when you work?
Well, there's definitely, I've noticed a sharp contrast between the first, let's say, 4 to 6 hours of the day, and then the last. I could work 12 hours, but I might as well just stop at 8 because the efficiency kind of falls off after 10.
Yeah, it's like this, and everybody will focus on where he is super sharp, super clever, super effective, and super impactful. Otherwise, why doing that?
And that has a virtuous cycle attached to it because if you're working at your best, you get those natural rewards for being good at what you do and being naturally curious about it, being more of a benefit to society, and so it's actually a joy to work instead of being forced to do something that you can do, but it isn't necessarily your passion, which the machines can now do or soon will be able to do better than we can.
And it will in fact, all this will drive human beings in recognizing its strength, and it's the reason why we were born is in a way is not only to live, I mean, like a physical body continuing, but to have peaks. We are going to concentrate much more on the peak side of the life, which is going to be a pleasure for everyone. And we, as technical guys, we have to give the possibility this to make it possible.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we should stop there. I'd love to check in with you again and see where we're at. Is there anything that we didn't get to touch on that you'd like to highlight?
Security, just security and GDPR compliance. This system is much more secure than anything else before because it has 3 different levels of encryption. So it's not all, I mean, big corporates are always afraid of security of data because it's the first entry, I mean, in point. I want to have data which are secured. But the security is not only managing the archive, it's also managing the input of the data. So if you have a process where every single step is disciplined, you have a security which is starting from the beginning of the data entry. And then, of course, you have data which are encrypted twice for the public, for the private, and for the in-between steps that we have made put together. So here we are erasing the security problem in a way, because also there is also, you have to consider that this world that we are going towards is the Web3 world, is made of fragmented entities. It's not anymore a centralized, it's a fragmented, decentralized. So you can attack maybe one, two, three, 100 blockchains, but you cannot attack the whole system because it doesn't fall like a domino system. Everything is segregated. So we are going to go into a system and to a data economy where everything and all the processes will be more secure and stable by default. I mean, it's instead of making the whole system of paper is made of robust steel.
Yeah, like crumple zones, and also I think of like big ships like the Titanic. Maybe the Titanic is a bad example, but big ships that have like different like sections that basically they can flood, but the ship will stay afloat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, it was a real pleasure speaking with you. Triumph.com is where people can see what you're working on, your company website, that is. Is there anywhere
Yeah.
else that you'd like to point people?
No, no, Trient.com is okay, but it's just for the moment a very limited exposure of what we have done
Sure.
on purpose. Because now we make the GTM, the go-to-market, in a very wide open way, and you will see a lot of changes.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you once again, Federico.
Thank you, Dave.